faculty, may call roll.
Lori Kruski,
Here.
Tom Hack.
Here.
Scott Fishel.
Here.
Linda Grassi.
Here.
Jennifer Hart.
Here. Can we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge of Allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
No, I'm just going to say, I think we need to take a vote for the board on how to recite the Pledge of Allegiance. That one part.
We're not saying that. We're not in sync. So I just want to welcome, on behalf of the board, I'd like to welcome all students, staff, parents, and interested community members to tonight's Board of Education meeting. I'd like to remind everyone that this is a meeting of the Board of Education held in public for the purpose of conducting the school district's business and is not to be considered a public community meeting. There is time for public comment during the meeting in the public participation section on the agenda. So make a motion to approve the minutes for November 17th, 2022 board meeting minutes.
Second.
Any discussion? Ms. Blackwell, can you call the roll?
Tom Hack.
Aye.
Scott Fishel.
Aye.
Linda Grassi.
Aye.
Jennifer Hart.
Aye.
Lori Kruski.
Aye. Motion carried. Mr. Mitchell, I know you might have wanted,
Yeah, so I was going to make a motion to amend the agenda. Do I have a second?
you have to state what you're going to, what you're.
Okay. I was making the motion, and just so everyone knows that there was an agreement, I guess, that to amend the agenda, it would be given 48 hours before the meeting, and that was past that. So in order to amend the agenda, I have to make a motion. And so the motion is to a resolution to remove the social emotional learning program responsive classroom and any and all ongoing training, teaching, and professional development involved with that. Do I have a second?
So, I guess I certainly am inclined to agree with you, but we've discussed this and it went down, so I'm not, I guess before I might second it, I guess I want to understand more about what's going on.
We never had a board vote.
Well, so I think in order to have discussion, you would have to have a second to have that discussion. If you feel, so I guess that's the,
I,
And who was the second for the?
we don't, it doesn't get added.
Yeah, so.
yeah, so I am, yeah, I am not inclined.
Do I have a second? Okay, so just as a procedural matter, is this policy, that amendment, a motion to amend has to be made, or was it just a verbal agreement with the board members?
Well, to add a resolution, you have to have two board members.
No, I mean, within the 48 hours to amend, was that a policy change that we did?
So the policy reads that the agenda should be sent out 48 hours beforehand, and we as a board said how we would do business is not to make a change to it during that 48 hours, because the public might read it, one of us might read it. When a change happens during that time, it's very hard for us to figure out what changed. So we as a board agreed that we would not.
Right, so what I'm saying is it was a verbal agreement and it's not policy. Because policy says, yes, the agenda goes out 48 hours ahead of time. But if something were to happen, let's say a major event happened at the school 8 hours ago, we would not be able to cover that on the agenda?
Well, they would make a motion, whatever the event was, if it was to add personnel, if it was to add something in curriculum, somebody would have to make a motion to amend the agenda, so the same thing.
Right, so I'm asking, is that actually written in the policy, what you just said?
We'd have to take a look at that policy,
I
but
don't
again,
think-
as a verbal.
I don't think it is.
Okay.
So I'm
But
just
again-
saying, I don't believe we're following written policy. I think we're following a verbal agreement of the board, making rules as we go.
Well, we agreed that this is how the board would operate. It's that agreement that we made amongst ourselves to say how we would operate.
That's my point exactly. So it's not policy.
Jen, can you put on for the next policy meeting to take a look at that policy, so we can just make sure, I don't have it right here in front of me.
I don't
too.
either, but to your point, we did, we literally just talked about this at this last meeting and the meetings
And
prior to
everybody
that.
agreed to how we
That
would
that's how we
operate
would
as a
operate,
board.
just so we could all be on the same page.
Right.
For the events that occur that would require us to take an emergency action, we could have.
A special meeting, yes.
But to your point, we can always add an agenda item,
Right.
like you're trying to do, it just doesn't mean that it gets added.
And I
Right,
guess
so I'm
even
I'm
if
just saying
this,
it might be good to have it in policy, what the rules are, rather than make up rules outside of policy and operate that way.
well, and again, I don't think we're making up rules. We've said that we were talking about boardmanship, and we've discussed boardmanship many times, and this is how we said we would operate as a board. So we'll take a look at the policy during the next meeting. But again, it was an agreement among all the board. Even if it was outside of the 48 hours, you would have to have 2 board members that would agree to put it on. So it's the same procedure, no matter if it's outside the 48 hours or within the 48 hours.
So what you're saying is that anything on the agenda needs more than one board member to be put on the agenda.
Yeah, so you could bring it up in old business again, but again, we've discussed it, but you could bring it up in old business. If somebody is inclined to discuss it then, that's different. But at this point,
Yeah, so what I'm saying is that while the agenda is set and goes out 48 hours ahead of time, something else could be added to that before the meeting,
with a vote here at the table,
okay? But that's not written in policy that way.
and we'll take a look at
Yeah,
that.
so I'm just saying we should probably follow policy and dot our i's and cross our t's. And so I can certainly bring it up at the next meeting. That's not an issue. I just think we should clean up the policy.
Right,
Thank you.
yeah? All right, so I'm going to make a motion to adjourn to executive session at 7:08 PM for matters of appointment and or employment and compensation. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Blackoff?
Scott Fishel,
Aye.
Will Grassi,
Aye.
Jennifer Harden,
Aye.
Lori Kniske,
Aye.
Tom Heck.
Aye.
Motion carried. We'll be right back. We're going to step out. Make a motion to return to regular session at 7:26 PM. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Fischel. Can you call the roll, please?
Will Grassi,
Aye.
Jennifer Harden,
Aye.
Lori Kniske,
Aye.
Tom Heck,
Aye.
Scott Fishel.
Aye.
Motion carried. All right, so that brings us to a work session with the OSBA regarding our superintendent search.
All
So,
right.
Ms. Ryan, thank
Good
you.
for me?
Yeah, thank you.
It's my pleasure to be with you this evening. And I have just a couple documents that if you could take one and pass down of each of these things, and you can take one for your superintendent and treasurer. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. That's for you. Thank you. Thank you. One more coming here.
Oh, thanks.
So, again, my name is Cheryl Ryan, and I'm with the Ohio School Boards Association. And I'm here to talk to you about what you envision for the superintendent search process. And I guess I would just start, so what I've given you for the folks in your, that are here listening is just a kind of a guide so that I can make sure I ask you all the questions that I think you need to be asked as we move forward, and then a suggested timeline for the process. So I find that during the search, the board, the 5 of you, will not be together for much of the search. During the application process, the recruiting process, when I'm here meeting with different community groups, if we decide tonight you'd like me to do that, do focus groups in your community, setting up interviews, all that kind of thing, the board is not a part of those processes until you come together to screen all of your candidates, choose who it is that you want to interview, and then obviously for interviews. So this meeting is important so that I kind of have my marching orders and we're all on the same page. I will be communicating with all of you fairly often during the recruiting period, just to give you an update on where things are with marketing the position, the number of candidates that we have, that kind of thing. We'll certainly be talking to you as we get close to community focus groups again. That's one of the topics to cover. So before I really dig in and start talking and taking notes, do any of you have any questions? Okay.
What is the purpose of the focus groups?
The purpose of the focus groups, it's a good question. The purpose of the focus groups is for me to hear from your different community groups. And usually focus groups, I like them if they can be somewhat homogenous. So we might invite a group of teachers, we might invite a group of administrators, we might invite a group of parents. And the purpose in inviting separate groups to talk to me is so that I can understand what it is that they believe would be valuable, career experiences and characteristics for a superintendent, and then for me with you to weigh those against what you have said. It helps the board to understand how similar they are to different groups in their community, and maybe some of the things that teachers, for example, are concerned about that you might not necessarily be thinking of or that aren't top of mind for you. So after community focus groups, I always provide a report to the board that says this group said that, this group said that, and give you basically every comment that's offered at focus groups you will see, and it gives you as a board hopefully some peace of mind that you're on the same page for the most part with your community.
So let me make sure I'm understanding. It's more for us to get an idea of what people think, so that when we do the interviews, we can find out if people the applicants meet those criteria that people have said, rather than putting it out there before we ask for applicants. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, I'm trying.
Yeah, so
Right.
the marketing brochure that I will write based on the conversation we had this evening tells applicants really what the board is looking for and what the priorities of the district are, and what are some of the maybe what some of the immediate needs might be in the district when this person takes over for Mr. Kalis, et cetera. Then when we do the focus groups, usually that happens sometime during the recruiting period when we do the focus groups. Then I can come back to you and say, your thoughts about this were spot on, or this is something I heard from all groups, or every group was similar, but parents were different in this way and teachers were different in this way. It's an opportunity for the board to allow community feedback into the process before the interviews begin. And I will tell you that not every board does it. Not every board thinks it's necessary or wants to do it. It's totally an option for you. But if it's something that you think is important and that you want to do, it's included in the search. Okay, so any other questions? And we'll talk more about that here as we get to it. So the first thing really is the timeline, and that is important just because I'm in Columbus and I want to be here for all the big pieces of the search, and so we want to make sure that your calendars, the 5 of you in particular, probably your treasurer as well, are aligned. So on the timeline I've given you, there are several dates that are in bold, and those are the dates when the board should all be present.
So I know for a fact that there's actually, for first and second round interviews, I'm out of state.
Okay.
Not the entire week, but the week of February 20th, I'm actually Monday the 20th returning from Atlanta that day, late in the day. The second round interviews, the week of March 6th, I am in Orlando, the 9th through the 13th.
Okay. Well, which is why we had this conversation. So the week of February 20th, you are out which dates?
I return from Atlanta the night of the 20th,
Okay.
which is also a holiday that day, that one day.
So as you can see, there's lots of dates there that are not bold, and that's when I'm doing my work or I'm communicating with you all via email or over the phone. Some of those have to do with the brochure and the brochure copy. A collection period, I'm suggesting that we collect applications and resumes until February 10th. That's about 5 to 6 weeks. That is sort of an average posting period. We can make it longer, we can make it shorter, depending on your needs. These dates are just suggestions. This is your search, And so this is just something to throw darts at, and we've already had a few thrown, so that's fine. The focus groups in district, there are 4 days there that my calendar is completely clear. So Gary, I usually lean on a treasurer to sort of look at the school calendar and tell me if one of those 4 dates, those are all, I think, Tuesdays or Wednesdays, is a date where there is less stuff happening in the district that might conflict, or that that would cause people that I want to meet with to be sort of double or triple booked and unavailable. So those are 4 dates that are clean on my calendar, and so I offer those as potential focus group dates. The board decides they want to do those. So it would be one of those 4, not all 4. The closing date for applications of Friday the 10th. Then I would send all of you your screening login. Once the application date passes, that's usually the first time I look at the actual candidates, who they are. I try to keep track of numbers so that I can update you, as I said, throughout the process. We make sure that everybody that's applied for the position has the minimum requirements by law that are necessary for a superintendent, that all the pieces and parts of their application are submitted, and we provide a portal for each of you to go in and individually review the candidates. You can take notes in our system according to the Open Meetings Act. The notes that you take are private to you as long as you aren't sharing them and you aren't obviously publishing them. You'll take notes in our system, and then we'll come together. I'm suggesting a screening report meeting on the 13th or 14th, and I just realized that 14th is Valentine's Day, so for the romantics in the room, that might not be handy.
Well, you are wearing red.
I am wearing red, well, holiday season, you know, so. But I'm suggesting one of those 2 evenings. We can do it at a time convenient for all of you again. Maybe it's in the daytime, maybe it's 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock at night, but that's the meeting where we will all come together, and hopefully all of you will have had a chance to look at all the applications, and you'll come together, and Jennifer will say, I really like these ones, and Thomas will say, I really like these ones, I didn't like those ones, and we will talk about who most closely identifies to the profile that we developed for the brochure. Yeah.
Questions? For the focus groups you're doing, if there's 4 focus groups, you do those all in one day?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And depending on the type of group, I can tell you that, you know, if I meet with teachers, it tends to be at 4 o'clock in the afternoon before they leave the buildings. If I meet with parents, a lot of times that's 6:30 in the evening. That tends to be the last one of the day. Sometimes I meet with administrators, and if I meet with administrators, sometimes that's 10:30 in the morning after principals have sort of gotten the day underway and can break away for 40 minutes. But we can talk about that based on the groups that you might like me to meet with.
So can I just ask the board, just so we know, does everybody agree with the focus groups?
I think if we're going to go through the process, we should go through the process.
I would agree. Yeah, I'm fine with it. There we go.
Okay? The other thing we can do, if you like, is develop a brief survey, just 2 or 3 questions. You can put that link on your website or Facebook page, and then that can be answered by anybody that may or may not want to come in person to a focus group, but wants to provide some feedback. We can do that as well. So the screening report meeting of the 13th or 14th, that would have given you 3 days, 4 days to look at all the applications, and then the interviews start. So if those are the important dates. So maybe we should work backwards from interview dates, or determine that if it looks like March 9th, 13th is bad for at least one of you, maybe we jump a week later in the process so that is anybody else traveling in February, late February and March?
So I might be doing some things in that time frame, but as long as we are relatively, if we set dates relatively soon, then I can work around that.
Okay? So when we talk about first round interviews, I have a week of February 20th there. You won't need a week, right? So depending on how many people you choose to interview, we set interviews up usually in the evenings, 2 or 3 per evening. So for some boards, 2 nights is enough. For some boards, it goes 3 nights. It just depends again on how many people you would like to meet initially.
And those interviews are typically conducted in person or on the phone or Zoom, or what's the mix?
In the last year, they've been back in person.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, if you should have an applicant from Texas, perhaps it might be Zoom. But since we were in kind of the heat of COVID in 20 and, you know, the first 6 or 8 months of 21, most boards have been back in person already.
We'd have a board meeting on the 23rd if we continue with the same
Thursday schedule.
schedule. Not that that matters, because we can always move that, I'm just saying, because I already have my calendar.
So should we start with the screening dates first? Because we have to do that first, right?
Yeah.
So, I don't know, Jen, was that a week that you had a problem with, like not a problem, a conflict with, I should say?
Tuesdays, I head out to the west side by 6:30 p.m. Every Tuesday and Wednesday, the entire year. I'm on the west side after 6:30.
The screening we can do during the day, correct?
Yeah,
The screening, I mean, maybe I'm
as long
wrong.
as the 5 of you can be free.
Okay, the screening is done as a group,
Right, we'll do that in person. That would be an executive session because we're talking about
personnel.
individual applications, yeah.
Okay, all right. I guess I know you said that, but I was still thinking that we would review that individually.
Right, so you'll get your login and presumably do your reviewing Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday before we meet on Tuesday, for example. I always want to try and give you 3 or 4 days between the time that you get your login and I see you. So if these days aren't good, we'll just, start over.
How long does that usually take?
The screening meeting,
Like, really?
I hate to not answer, it depends on how many candidates you have.
Yeah, I know.
But I will tell you, I have done searches before where we started a screening meeting and we said, Scott, what are your top 5? And Lori, what are your top 5? Linda, what are your top 5? And they tend to be the same 5. What are your bottom 5? What are your bottom? And it's the ones in the middle that you end up talking about, the ones that 2 of you think are really interesting, but 3 of you aren't quite so sure. So it could be an hour, and sometimes I would say 90 minutes is generous. 90 minutes would be generous.
So,
And you're coming here for that, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
so for you romantics among us, should we shoot for the 13th, just to let the romantics have their day?
That's
I
a
can-
Monday, and it sounds like that works for you, Jennifer?
I can do anything that day or night on the 13th, yeah.
I don't care.
If I'm planning this far ahead, I can make it work too, either day or night, so.
What time of the day?
I prefer first thing in the morning.
Yeah.
I mean, not too first things, like 8.
I love driving to Cottage.
Right, I said that just put a little
All right,
burn on me.
9.
I'm kidding, I'm kidding.
Sorry for.
I can always come up the night before, so
Okay.
that works too.
No,
She leaves by 6:30, 9 o'clock's good.
I can make it, if we're playing far enough ahead, I can make it work, so.
So do you want 9 o'clock?
For me, it doesn't make any difference, like, I'll do anytime, so, I'll take it.
I'm flexible, so
Yeah.
I don't want to push what I want, when I can be flexible whenever it's best for you.
Yeah, no, that would probably work for me.
Okay, so let's say 9 a.m. on Monday the 13th.
At least it wasn't Friday.
I'll send the calendar later.
Thank you.
And would we do that here, in this room?
No, it'll be a
Board
class.
office.
Okay. Just so I don't have to go to the wrong place.
You'll have to
You
read
do
notice
that
all,
quite
you notice
often.
whole Spanish class in here.
Okay, so if that works, then what I would do typically is then I spend probably Tuesday and Wednesday that week contacting all of your candidates and getting them set up. And I would get them set up typically for dates the following week. So if the 20th is out, how do the 21st, 22nd, 23rd work for all of you those evenings?
I'm available.
I'm not available on Tuesdays or Wednesday evenings. I'm
Okay.
sorry.
So,
The 20th would work for me. If-
I'm in
she's
Atlanta that day.
out of town.
Oh, I'm sorry, I
I'm
think you
coming back
said,
from Atlanta that day. I'm driving 10 hours home from Atlanta that day.
okay, I'm sorry, I misunderstood. I thought you said you were not available on the 21st or 22nd, so the 20th does not really work, or later in the week.
The 20th doesn't work because I'm driving home from Atlanta that day.
So the 20th
And
and
I'm-
22nd are out.
I'm
Well,
not
it's
available.
unusual to do interviews on Friday evenings or Saturday mornings, but it's not unheard of.
I'm actually in
we
Columbus
could
that
do-
entire weekend.
we could plan on Thursday the 23rd and then a couple days the next week, or we could not do anything the 23rd and try and do them all the week of the 27th.
So if we do the 23rd, we'd have to have our board meeting on the 16th.
Well, the 24th, 26th.
Yeah, we can plan around it, next month when we're setting the dates,
27th.
Just saying.
but we would have to.
Yes.
How does the week of the 27th look for you, Jen?
I can do Monday the 27th or Thursday the 2nd. I can't do Tuesdays or Wednesdays.
So just for continuity and for fairness, I think we might be better off doing them all in the same week. Just so that they're in a similar environment, I guess. We're in a similar mental state, rather than having a whole weekend and time to ponder.
So what about the 27th of February and the 2nd of March?
Those would work for me.
Good. Belinda? It's fine. Good, we got another one. And those are in the evening. Everybody's,
What is the earliest that all 5 of you can be here?
And this far in advance,
Like-
I
5
can change my
a.m.
work schedule.
Like 5 p.m.? Is 5 p.m. reasonable
Yes.
for all of you?
yeah.
Okay, so I usually set the first round interviews for an hour, and that allows some time to say goodbye to Bill and say hello to Mary.
So Bill comes in at 5 and the other one comes in at
And he's usually out at 5:45, and Mary
Okay,
shows
so
up
it's
at
45.
6, you know, that kind of thing. So I set them up usually on the hour, and that allows you some transition, time to get something to drink, that kind of stuff.
Perfect.
Okay, so I'll shoot for the 27th and March 2nd. And can we, just for fun, have a third evening in case you just have a lot of people you can't say no to for a first round interview? It'll be our last choice if we
So
have too many folks.
maybe the 6th or the following week, or, I mean, I would prefer to have them all the same week, but it sounds like that's just not possible.
What about Friday the 3rd?
I mean, I can do that.
I'm good.
I'm fine.
Okay, I'll put that down and I won't use it unless I have to. How's that? Okay, so the week after the first round interviews, we usually leave a week, which appears to be, now it would be more the week of the 6th. And that is when your finalists, so after you do the first round interviews, the 5 of you will talk, hopefully, and you will come up with a list of what I refer to as finalists. Usually that is at least 2, oftentimes 3, and rarely 4. Okay? And those would be people that, hopefully with minor exceptions, you seem to be pretty happy with. They seem to fit, at least at first blush, their answers to the questions in the first round interviews, rung the bell.
So are we generally talking that you're gonna have, for second round interviews, are you talking like your top 3 that we're doing them all in one day?
That totally depends too.
Well, because, and I know I'm being super difficult, but it is literally my biggest travel part of the year, and that is when I go to Orlando that week.
Which week is that?
The week we're talking about the second round interviews on Thursday.
That's week of the 6th?
Yes.
Okay,
And I
that
can't-
would get pushed now because of your first round interviews already.
So are we talking the 13th?
So I'm thinking the week between first round interviews and second round interviews, which is the week when your finalists are doing some stuff I asked them to do for you, which is some leadership assessments and that sort of thing. And also checking references is usually that week. So now I'm thinking the week of the 13th would be second round interviews, and Jennifer, that's bad for you.
Well, I don't come home until Monday night, maybe even Tuesday, I don't know yet.
Okay. So for second round interviews, let's say you have 3 folks, okay? We can do a myriad of things for those interviews. Some districts say we want 3 people in on 3 different nights. And we want them for a board interview, and we want them to meet a small group of our administrators, and we want them, whatever, take a tour of the district and just kind of do it up. Other districts, and frankly, I would say most districts, say we've got 3 people, we want to do it in one night. And we'll set up a round robin. And so A, B, and C. And board will be meeting with A, while B and C are meeting with administrators or teachers. And we kind of round robin them through and get them all through in one night. That way, if you do want an opportunity for certain groups of your community to meet your finalists, then let's just say it's administrators, then they're only out one night also, right? They're not having to give you 3 nights of their week. That's the most common scenario, so that would mean that we would need to reserve one night the week of, now I'm lost again.
The
One
13th.
night the week of the 13th. That might work for all 5 of you.
Thursday the 16th.
Probably not the 17th.
That would be a good idea, but.
I can do Thursday the 16th.
I can't.
Okay,
Yep, I'm sorry, yep.
that's 3/16. Can't believe we're talking about March. Okay. Then, after that happens, you all will deliberate and determine whether or not one of those theoretically 3 people is somebody that all 5 of you feels like you could support. By then, we'll have done reference checking, background checking, leadership assessment, and they'll have had 2 interviews with you, possibly a brief interview with a couple different pieces of your description. So hopefully you will have had several different pieces of information and feel like, you know, you're basing your decision on as much material as you possibly can. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. I will redo this timeline and send it to all of you. And if any of these dates end up not working, we'll figure it out. So the only date I would still be working on is a potential date for focus groups in the district.
In that Board of Education deliberation and decision, that would
That's just going to be as it's convenient for the 5 of you to do.
yeah, we might be able to tie that to our March board meeting there.
Probably do 23rd.
Yeah.
We keep it the same.
Just to kind of put a date on that, yeah.
So let's just say it was March 23rd and you all agreed on who you'd like to offer the job to, and you called him or her and they were thrilled, and you negotiated and all that kind of thing. That would mean you probably could appoint early in April, and that would give your current superintendent and your incoming superintendent lots of time to talk and converse and share information, etc. Sound good?
Sure, one quick question, I may have missed this, but in terms of going through the focus groups and everything else, who and how do you develop the questions to be asked? Obviously, you're going to be asking the same type of questions to every candidate, right?
Right. It's usually just, I usually ask the focus group. Sometimes it's 5 people and sometimes it's 50 people. Please share with me the kinds of personal experiences and leadership characteristics you think a superintendent should have.
I'm talking about
The round robin.
actual candidates.
The interview questions?
Does the board develop the
Oh,
questions?
the actual, oh, you're talking about the interviews.
Right.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood.
Does that come
When
from
we
the-
come back, when I come back for the screening meeting, we'll talk about the first round interview. In an OSBA search, our strong recommendation is that the first round interview be a scripted interview, meaning that all the candidates get the same questions in the same order from the same board members. So that at the end, Thomas, you, for example, could say, question number 2 about facilities. I really like the way this person answered it. This person didn't have an answer, you know, that kind of thing. But we want you to be able to the best of your ability, compare across the board after the first round interview. So when we're done with screening the candidates and we have 8 people that you've agreed to talk to, then we'll talk about the questions for the interview. We'll try and make sure that key pieces from the brochure, maybe something that came through loud and clear in the focus groups, something else, maybe we haven't talked yet, but maybe there's something coming up in the district. Let's say you're a district that's going to be expecting to have a levy in November. You know, you might want to have a question on your interview about levy experience and that kind of thing. So it just depends totally. But that first round interview, I will write that script for you. I'll send it to you just like the brochure. I write, I draft, I send to you. You look at it, say I don't like this, I sort of like this, I like this a lot, this looks good. Get it back to me, and then we get it back to you in time for the interviews in a form that all 5 of you like.
Question.
Yes.
Just previous to this meeting, I was involved in an interviewing process, and there's scripted questions,
Right?
okay, to each candidate. Based on their answers, you might have a couple other questions.
Sometimes in that interview, and I'll tell you what, there's not a lot of time. So I always tell candidates when I call them and set them up, the board's gonna have, it's usually 10 questions. And I need you to be concise, and I need you to be clear, and I need you to not ramble. I tell this to the candidates. Usually at the end of the interview, there's just a few minutes where you might say, is there anything else that you believe you want us to know about your candidacy that we haven't asked about?
I'm just saying, my preference would be to maybe allow a little bit more time in there, because that follow-up question could be the most important question in the whole interview.
It could be. In my experience, you'll have time for a little bit of that, but not a lot, I'll be honest with you. If you feel like you need more time than the hour that we normally allocate to that first interview, let me know and we'll schedule them that way. Okay, so, profile development. So expected start date and transition, I was talking with the superintendent before the meeting started, he's here through July. So by law, superintendent contract starts on August 1st. Oftentimes there are per diem days or temporary days or consulting days that you'll want the new superintendent here before August 1st, and especially if they're overlapping and learning from one another. So I will put in the brochure August 1st is the start date unless you tell me something different.
It's pretty typical. It's pretty typical, though.
Right.
They all do it, right?
And then major or key issues and opportunities. What is the big stuff that you expect might be happening in this district in the next couple or 3 years? Is there anything major that you're going to want a superintendent who is ready to hit the ground running in certain aspects?
We know we will most likely have new facilities plans, so working on our facilities, that will be a key thing.
What do you expect will change facilities-wise?
We're working through that right now, trying to develop that plan, so I don't know that we have a clear picture how to describe that yet.
Okay, but new facilities or different facilities are on the board somewhere, probably.
Correct.
Okay. Anything else? I mean, not that that's not enough.
And updated strategic plan.
Okay.
Yeah, we just updated that, but we'll have to update it again at some point in the next 3 years.
Where are you in your negotiation cycle?
That will be determined, but we think that the incoming superintendent won't have to worry about that. I'd be concerned about it.
Okay, good.
Although both you and John are on the same yearly cycle.
Oh, they're on different cycles? Okay, what, if a superintendent came in and just made everybody in the district happy as a clam, what would he or she have done in the first 6 months that would signal that sort of approval?
I know for me, a lot of it's engagement with administration, staff, and the families of the district, and even the community.
I use the word rapport, for example. Yeah.
Establish rapport and trust with community members and administration and staff.
Right, and the board as well, obviously.
Yeah, I would add to that continuity, I think, is of great importance.
Continuity?
Yes, continuing what we have.
The momentum.
Momentum, another good word, right?
As mentioned, we just redid our strategic plan, so I think there's some goals set, like making sure that we're progressing on those goals.
Do you all envision that the superintendent would necessarily come in with current superintendent experience? Or do any of you believe that a central office administrator, a principal, What do you sort of envision as experience level? Everybody's different and every application is different. We'll look at everybody individually, but in general, what do you think the experience level is going to need to be for this person?
If it's not somebody who's come in with central office experience or not have superintendent experience previously, that they would have been with a district that's large enough to give them some experience in a central office, like I don't.
I think there is a threshold, as Mrs. Grassi talked about, but I think we would cast a wide net.
Would you be open to an out-of-state candidate?
As long as they're willing to move here.
It would be.
Okay.
Very astute observation there, Mr.
Thank you. It's, you know, I'm just
You
like,
want somebody that's working remotely from Louisiana?
yeah, I just thought I'd put that out there, just in case.
Okay. Any other particular experiences? And what I mean here is, your district maybe not so much, but let's just, in a small district, for example, sometimes the superintendent has to also be the main operations person. Maybe in a district, the superintendent needs to be super strong in curriculum because there are already good operations people in the district. So I would ask you, in terms of this person leaving, are there gaps, are there particular skill sets that you hope to look for in a candidate?
I would like to see somebody who's extremely dynamic and well-versed in how to engage with the community. Like, and
Okay.
that has no problem doing it. Like,
I think we have a strong central office and people that are well versed in their roles, so I think it's really about bringing everybody together and accomplishing goals too.
Okay,
just those leadership.
so a team leader.
And I would add to that a very strong business acumen, because that normally encompasses all the facets.
As superintendent, do you do a lot of mixing with community and civic groups and
We do. You know, a lot of us are part of.
mayors groups and?
We have a business advisory committee that has really expanded over the last couple of years.
Who chairs that committee?
Dr. Bassich,
Okay,
he's sitting right behind Judy with the
Okay.
shirt. We also have reached out to student groups, student advisory groups, to get the pulse on their experiences at the school, to help us develop policy and practices that suit our students. I'm part of the Exchange Club. I was part of Kiwanis, Chamber of Commerce. We meet regularly with the Sheriff's Department because we do have SROs in our buildings. They've always have done a great job for us in terms of safety and security,
is there an SRO in each building?
which we're getting there.
Okay.
Not all right now, but we have hired a few more this year.
Okay. How about personal strengths? Anything that you want to see in a personality characteristics that you believe are ones that would resonate, not only with the board, but with the community?
They have to be trustworthy. I mean, I think that's the whole foundation of the board and the interaction with the superintendent and the treasurer. Trust has to be there, or there's a problem. So, I mean, be pretty basic and top of the list for most people, but I definitely want to bring that out as a key characteristic that we need.
Okay,
I think very much too want to see, when we talk about leadership skills, I really want to see somebody who can come in, and I remember when Mallory, when we even like interviewed her, she came in with kind of like a timeline and kind of looked at the district as a whole and what she saw, where improvements could be made. I want someone who can, when they're coming to interview, can say, here's what I see can be improved in the district. Here are the things that I think will make Riverside better. Here's my plan to get us there, not just, I want to come in and, I mean, I know I want Jim to retire because I think he's been a great guy to work with, but at the same time, I want to say, like, if someone new is coming in the position, I want to see what they believe they can do
sure.
to take us to the next level, because I think we've been building a great culture with Mr. Mayor now too as a new principal, like we've got this new culture and all these things, and I want to see what someone else looking at the district, how they feel they can make us even greater than we are.
And I really like what you said, and I would tell you that oftentimes in the second interview with the board, we ask your finalists to make some sort of presentation and start the interview with 10 or 15 minutes of, what my plan would be. It does give you that information, what they see, what they know about your district, and how they prioritize things, but also how they present and what is their style in terms of communicating with the board. So I appreciate that you said that. I agree.
I don't know how familiar you are with our district, but I think it's kind of rather eclectic too. We pull from different townships. We have kids that are from all different types of socio-economic backgrounds. And the district has been changing over the years demographically, and that's something I think that will probably continue over the next few years.
And for me, I know that I look at this district and I think we're sort of unique in leadership and the interaction between leadership, the rest of the leaders, the board. It's almost like we're family, so I hate to see us take this to, we just have an employer and employee relationship, right? Like I feel like a lot of times we can say lots of things in a room and don't take it personally. They don't take it personally. We say lots of stuff around here, and we're very comfortable with each other doing that. I for one, want to see that continue in a candidate, so somebody who comes in and is not going to be that, have that kind of a relationship with the people that are here and the people at the table. It's not like this side versus that side. We're family.
I appreciate that. Work right, family. Do you have open enrollment here?
We do by policy, but through attrition, we have not allowed any new students in.
Okay.
The ones that are in the pipeline are going to continue through. So
Okay.
every year it's less and less.
Okay. Has your enrollment basically been steady for the past few years?
It has, but there's new housing starts that, for me, is alarming. And as selfish as I am, I'm glad I'm getting out. Because I figure the next 5 to 10 years,
You envision growth.
we're hopefully we'll have our facility plan
Okay.
completed, and that will address some of our concerns. But it has been steady over the last couple of years. We have about 4,200 students in the district. But, there are developments popping up all over the place.
Okay.
We're in the works.
Well, I'd like to add to that last question, the qualities you were asking about.
Mm-hmm.
So, to me, what's important, and Mr. Hack said trustworthiness, I think what goes along with that is honor and integrity. I think those are honor and integrity and trustworthiness are the three main components in anyone that would be hired.
I think those three things that Mr. Fisher brought up dovetail to exactly what Mrs. Grassi talked about, is we to have that kind of community feel, we have to be we're not always going to agree, but we have to have constructive conversations, and we need to know where everybody stands, and people putting their cards on the table. If there's a lot of holding cards to your vest and playing one against the other, that just is not going to work. We need to work things out. We're not always going to agree, but it needs to be done in a way where everybody is heard, in an environment that where there isn't machinations going on behind people's backs.
Yep.
And that's why, again, I think we're sort of unique. I don't see that, you don't see that very often. So,
Yeah, I that would be an environment, a communication environment that I think a lot of superintendents would really like to have. That opportunity to be able to disagree and still be family, to use your word, at the end of the evening. Is it your thought that this board will hope that the superintendent lives in the district, or does that not matter?
We've survived 16 years without
Sorry.
Well, family, that's coming from my crazy uncle.
Okay, so
No.
preferred not a deal breaker, is that the deal, or?
I think
I don't
Texas is out, but.
Yeah, right.
It doesn't matter to me if they're even from this, if they're from this area. I want the best person for the job or location. Does not matter to me as long as no way affect their job performance.
Okay. Are there anything else that you would consider deal breakers?
Felonies?
Yes.
Wow.
That's fair, that's fair.
Yeah, that'd
That's
be
kind of a low bar, but okay.
Really?
Well, I'll take that. Yeah, we won't go there yet.
I think deal breakers for me are gonna come out more once we're in the interview process. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think when we're talking about someone on paper, no, short of a criminal record, I think this is just our opportunity, right, to look for who we believe the best candidate might be. And the deal breakers, I think, come out when we actually speak to them and see how they interact with us and interact with our, our staff and our students and things like that.
Okay.
That's where I'm at as far as deal breakers.
In terms of interacting with your staff to that point, focus groups. Talk a little bit about it. I heard you say you think it's a good idea. Usually I do 4 or 5 in a day. I like to end my day with what I call the all call. And that tends to be parents, staff members who weren't able to get away during the day. It might be community members who don't have children in the district but are just very interested in what's happening. So I normally will work with the treasurer in terms of I provide an invitation or something that can go out in an email to different groups or be put on your Facebook page and with a schedule. So if I were going to do 4 or 5 focus groups, and again, that homogeneity I think is really nice for a focus group because it helps me understand the voice. What would be those groups that would be important for you to do?
Definitely your staff.
Staff, and would you want to separate teachers from non-certified staff, or does staff in general seem okay to you? Or maybe primary from secondary?
So I would, as I see it, I would see the, teaching staff versus non-certified staff would be a separate
Okay.
group, as I would see it. And then, I don't know, it
And
could
then
be
administration. for sure.
administration, and would it make sense to have, the campus and elementary as two separate groups as
I
well?
think so, because I think there's different needs, different interactions.
I would, my own personal opinion, for whatever it's worth, I'd put them together. I think there's too much of a discussion about it being splintered over the years too, that I would put the teachers as a group.
That's an interesting point.
And then put the classified staff.
Have a teacher over there shooting.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, so you're saying all together, so it
I
would be,
would, don't you think?
Yes, I would agree. I would agree.
Don't you think that would be better?
Together, yes.
Have the elementary, middle, and high school
There you
together?
go. There you go. Decision made.
Okay. So I have teachers, non-certified staff, administrators, and then what I call the all-call at the end of the day.
The public,
And-
right.
The public, yeah.
I would add to that, business owners.
Okay, business members?
We're looking at engaging more of the business community to look at more education and training, such that graduates might stay locally rather than leaving.
Do you think the business
Yeah,
advisor
that's
would
what I
be
was
good
thinking.
for
What do you think about business advisory?
Okay.
Not,
They could certainly be in that group.
all of them,
From our community?
yes, they should live there.
They should,
Many do.
they should be invested in your school district.
right, so.
That's
so-
why business advisor would be really good. I mean, these are business owners that have taken
That
or
are
invested in Istra, and they know Riverside.
They still, and even if they don't necessarily live in the community, they may,
They're working
work
here,
with people who graduate from Riverside, right? So
Okay.
they would be a stakeholder in that sense.
I mean, if we're gonna invite the community, we should be putting that up to the alumni association.
Mm.
That'd be 5 groups.
We also have, we have PTAs and PTUs throughout our district as well, where parents are vested in the schools.
That would be considered the parents and community members, correct?
Usually those groups would come to the evening,
Yeah,
the
okay.
evening, the last group of the day.
Yeah.
So if it's okay with you, I'll work with Gary, if it's okay with you. And get that invitation sent, choose a date. and move forward that way.
Do school board members typically attend any of the focus groups?
You know, I never tell school board members they can't attend a focus group.
Would you recommend?
I would recommend that they not. I often hear, it's not that people are saying negative things, some do, but it's mostly just that people will feel more free to say what they feel. Sometimes if you're not in the room, there's an intimidation factor there, even though you're all amazing people. And also, what I give you is just a bulletin list of everything that's said. We don't take attendance, and obviously I don't put Mary said this and Bill said this. So it's just sometimes better.
And the reason I bring that up, it was more focused on the community, listening to what they would have to say, as opposed to the other groups. Sometimes it's helpful to get an unvarnished understanding of what people say, and even if you're taking good notes, you know, a board member may perceive something that you would not, just because you're not from the community or what have you. So that was the reason I brought it up.
Right, so if a board member really wants to attend a focus group meeting, you should attend a focus group meeting. So seriously, that's the way I feel. But I do think sometimes they are just a little more relaxed when board members aren't there. I will give you every comment that's said. In fact, I will tell focus groups, if you say something and I don't write it the way you want it written, please correct me. So you will see everything that's said. Obviously, you won't see the tone, but, you know. So.
Can I ask you a question on the round robin at the end?
Yeah,
Who facilitates those?
I do.
Well, you can't be in 3 places at one time.
Well, I will sometimes bring a partner,
Okay.
but if you do a second round interview that includes just you, the board, you know, you say, we offer the focus groups, we don't need to involve anybody else in the second round interviews, usually you don't need me, because it's an interview between you and the candidate. But if there is a thing where we're moving candidates from one classroom to another and dodging, you know, community members and stuff, then it'll be me and maybe even somebody else from OSBA will be here.
I don't know that we'll do that, but I'm just
Right.
asking.
So we can also talk about that at the screening meeting, what you sort of want for second round interviews.
Because you'll need to let the candidates know that.
Right.
Correct.
Right. So the other thing is, candidates, when I call them and say, you've been selected as a finalist, are you still interested in the position? Do you want to move forward? Almost always it's absolutely, I'm excited, thanks for calling. But that's also when we tell candidates, now is the point that, you know, reference calls are going to be made. We're going to do a background check, which covers civil, traffic, criminal violations, potential violations. So at the point that they agree to become a finalist is the point that they become really an open book, not just for you, but for your community as well. I've covered everything in my agenda. Is there anything else right now that you all would like to ask or have me share with you that we haven't covered?
Do we see the brochure before you?
Oh, absolutely. So I have a draft date on this of January 3rd. So I will get it drafted. It might even be before that, depending on how quiet the week between Christmas and New Year's is, and get you that draft. You'll edit it. So the first time you get it, it'll be in a Word version. The second time you get it, it will be set up in a color version. We can still make changes with that PDF and that color version, but you'll see it at least once.
Will we need a working session for that? Because all of us giving you our opinions and our thoughts, or is it more of just a,
Usually you don't need to.
okay,
I will draft, send it to you. You should respond to me.
okay.
I will edit the draft and say, based on comments I got from the 5 of you, here's the next version. And then if it looks good, then it goes to our graphic designer who sets it up.
And the brochure is letting people, it's a profile of the district and talking about things we're looking, what's in the brochure?
Yeah, usually there's a piece there's an about the district piece. So then there's an about the community piece where we'll talk about where you draw your students from. And then there's a piece about finances, so I'll ask your treasurer to provide a snapshot for us. And then there is a piece about the stuff that we've talked about today, about the characteristics that are critical to the position. So a little bit of everything.
Is there a way to make a district stand out compared to others? I mean, we're in competition with other districts. Is there, I guess we can have that in the dialogue, but is there a way to, you know,
Yes, absolutely. If I send you a graph and you say, we are really proud of this, and you haven't mentioned this, or you haven't said enough about it, please make sure you say that. Or this is what makes us unique at Riverside. This is what you're not gonna get if you're at Painesville City or, you know, whatever else. So this is what we'd really like you to mention.
I think we're plucky.
I'll put that in the brochure. Well,
We are.
I love it.
Interesting.
It's kind of cheesy, but I'm cheesy.
Yeah, we're plucky. We're a plucky district. We stick with it and we keep.
I like it. That might be the first time I've had a board member use that word. I like it. So you'll see at least one, if not two versions of the brochure, and it'll have your, hopefully your fingerprints all over it by the time it goes to print. Okay?
Great.
Anything else?
No, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you
Well,
so
thanks so much for your time.
Gosh, Jim, it's real. I know, not yet.
When we approve the book.
It's our last Christmas celebration.
Oh,
thank you, Cheryl.
Sure.
Yeah.
Have a great holiday. Merry Christmas.
You
to all those celebrating.
Drive careful on the way back.
I will, thank you.
All right, so
Thank
that
you.
brings us to special reports.
Thank you so much.
I don't have any.
No special reports? All right, discussion of old business? Discussion of new business? All right, so that brings us to the Board of Education Committee and Liaison reports. First one is Superintendent Business Advisory Liaison, which is myself. We do have a meeting scheduled for January 10th. We are going to take a walk through the welding lab. I see some of the product up here, so we'll get some more on that. We'll also talk about the Riverside profile of a graduate with the Business Advisory Council, and it looks like we'll get an update on Business Advisory Council projects. Anything else on the agenda?
I'll share more during the presentation.
Okay, great. So more of an update to come. That brings us to Curriculum and Programming Committee, Alumni Association Liaison, Mr. Fischel.
No curriculum meeting for our curriculum director's request, and so would we like to set our next date now? Is that good? Or-
Well,
have
we
already-
can't, because
Oh,
there's no
yeah,
committee.
because you guys have to
We
make
said
sure
that.
you're on the same committee
Let's-
in
let's-
January.
Assuming the committee's the same, then we can schedule from there,
Right, we
but
can't.
the organization meeting committee could change.
Okay, all right, so,
So we'll do it at that organization meeting, what the very first one we have to, whatever it
well,
is.
that's fine, but I mean, even if it changed, for you, it wouldn't change.
It could, depending on people's
Okay,
availability.
all right,
Yeah.
that's fine.
Yeah, okay.
I'm fine with that. The Alumni Association, no update there. And so we'll just wait for the organizational meeting and see what the curriculum meeting is set.
Thank you. Buildings and Grounds and Operations Committee and Legislative Liaison, Mr. Hack.
So we met for Buildings and Grounds, met on the 13th, earlier this week. And, you know, things are, I think, in pretty good shape. We're making, so the boilers, just to reemphasize what we said earlier, that the boilers at Lamuth are installed and operating, so hopefully that is something that is not soon to be on the agenda of the Buildings and Grounds for issues. But we did have some issues with the boilers at the new elementaries, Parkside and Riverview, and we're working through those. The bottom line is there's some warranty work that I think that's been relayed needs to be done, and we should get those back online. We do have two, one in each building is down, but the other one is operating and can handle the load for the whole building. But we're working through some issues there, but we should be at a good steady state with the boilers at the new elementaries here shortly. We did talk, you know, there's maintenance going on, but I guess the one thing that is of note that I would bring up, and I'll turn the floor over to Mrs. Grassi if there's anything that I might have missed. there's been ongoing conversation with regard to the ball fields, the baseball fields. And it's a tricky situation because it's in the spring and it's hard to really get things going between, once the fall hits, it's hard to do much to the fields. You add to that, we don't know exactly what's going to happen at the campus, what spaces might be needed for different things. So it's, and the bottom line is, if we're really gonna make big improvements, it's pretty expensive, right? So we need to prioritize, we need to come up with a plan, and then we need to work in how we're going to fit the baseball fields in. Do we, do they need to be moved? Do we do something with with an artificial surface? Whatever we do, right? But the baseball fields cannot drive the decision-making process. They need to be incorporated into the decision-making process, but they can't drive it. It's too expensive, too much space. We need to work around other things first. So Mr. Arlesic was kind enough to give me a tour. I mean, I've seen the fields, but I haven't been on them. And so he gave me a tour, and really, there are issues, right? Our varsity field, when it's mentioned that the outfield and the infield on our varsity field are at different levels. They are really at different levels. When you stand out in center field, which I did, and you're looking to home plate, you can see the pitcher's mound, but you can't. I mean, if somebody was batting, you probably wouldn't see anything below their knees. I mean, it really is a challenge. Although I did make the observation, it's probably an advantage to us when we have games at home because we understand the field better, and maybe it's to our advantage at least in that regard.
For the scratching.
Right, exactly. But all of the fields have issues. We understand that. But I don't think we'd be doing the district or the taxpayers any favors if we try to full bore address the issues now, because it needs to be done in the context of a larger scope.
Is there anything we can do, like for instance, they talked about the roads back there are very full of potholes, and is there anything like we can do, like grade that down, kind of try to help those surfaces?
So I'm going to turn the floor over to Mr. Arlesic, since he lives, breathes, and this is more near to his heart.
The short of it is that it's money. It really is money, and then you fall back into the needs of the whole district and the driving force behind everything, and then you have to figure out how, as Mr. Hack said, everything falls into place. We could do some patching internally in-house, but it's not going to be a golden road, but it's something that we can make feasible this spring. In regards to the baseball fields, we're working with Vasco and Field Turf. Field Turf is the company that supplied the surface for our football field. Vasco is their division of maintenance for turf and natural fields of whatever sport you're talking about. We do have some plans this spring. We wanted to implement them this fall, but the weather has not cooperated. And again, with the fields, you don't want to start getting too many heavy pieces of equipment out there, because then there's the chances of damaging the field to the point where we're never going to play. So it's a very fine line and it's a balancing act, but we do have some plans with working with Vasco. We're going to change the surface of the plain dirt to more of a clay silica type product, so it can retard the water a little bit better. We will go ahead and build up our pitcher's mound. We're going to tear that down again, build it up with clay bricks, then put the playing surface on top of it, so it'll be a little bit sturdier. There are some things we're going to do internally as well with the warning tracks and the batters, the on-deck areas with gravel. But again, it's little pieces, parts. We're going to do our part to make it the best, and we always have Mother Nature in Northeast Ohio as well. So, but we do have ideas, we do have options. We're going to implement as much as we can and try to do our best to make it playable.
One thing you did mention over the years, I know it was Painesville Township was kind enough to allow us to have old asphalt frames too. We've taken those over the course of many years to throw down on the parking lot that doesn't have a surface back there, and also some of the roads. I don't know if that would help. We reached out to them or not, but again, it would be a lot more cost effective to do that for the time being than to put in asphalt, solid asphalt.
we've been talking about the baseball fields, like the whole,
Several
almost the
months,
whole,
yeah.
right, almost the whole, since summer. And so, you know, we're just trying to wait to see what the facility, what they come up with MD5 comes up with, and we have those conversations, and then we can start to prioritize. You know, like, it's just such a large amount of money that we've got to prioritize a project, so.
Yeah, there's a
and-
focus on a track too.
Yeah, and you know, it's been helpful. We've had some parents who have come and attended and been regular parts of those meetings, and so we're hearing what they have to say, and they understand the dilemma that we're in right now, because we're in between and in the midst of trying to prioritize where our money's gonna have to go, so.
I mean, that's just the unfortunate truth, but as Mr. Arlesic said, I mean, we're going to continue to try to do as much around the edges as we can to make it as useful as, until there is a better enduring solution that we can implement. So,
And playing off that around the edges comment, without a fully paved surface, it is so difficult to properly repair chuck holes, because they're repaired and they quickly become chuck holes again. So, you know, just know that it's a big challenge to be successful at that.
Mr. Grassi, anything else? So, as far as I'm the, what's my other role? I'm the
Legislative?
legislative liaison, yes. So just to give everybody a heads up, it's not going to happen in the lame duck session, but almost certainly, very likely, there's going to be a big change in the state school board and how it operates. Under current, if what was proposed during the lame duck transitions into the next term, it basically would be the State Board of Education would be in charge of licensure and a few things like that. But in essence, there would be a new position on the cabinet for the governor that would be education and workforce. And most of the responsibilities that the board has today would migrate there. So that did go down. There was a vote on it, I believe, last night that did not get through the lame duck. But very likely that will be brought up in the next term starting January 1st. So that is pretty substantial, and we'll see what, you know, everything has good and bad points. But I did want to make people aware that very likely there's going to, I would say certainly, but there's a really good chance that there's going to be a significant realignment of responsibilities at the state level with regard to education.
And that also would include, that position would be the director over education, which would basically take over a lot of what the Ohio Department of Education does. So.
Yeah. So that, right, I didn't spell that out. That would, the Ohio Department of Education would change pretty radically in that transition as well, to Mr. Fischel's point. Exactly right.
It's very interesting that bill sat lamely for 18 months, and then they tried to push that through in lame duck session. If anybody is interested in advocacy, I know that for myself, I will be like headed down when that goes through and goes to committee and whatever. I plan to actually like go to Columbus and have at least say my piece about it. So it's a pretty major overhaul. So if anybody wants information, you know, it's out there, so look at that.
I think there's a lot of discussion also about the voucher system. That's another piece that's still.
So I don't know I'm not aware of anything that necessarily happened during the lame duck, but there will be other things that come up in the regular session that is starting January 1st.
Yeah, that's a sure.
State budget season's coming up too, so I imagine that will be a discussion here.
And Ms. Krasinski, I'm not so sure vouchers were included in any writing, so there's been a lot of discussion.
Thank you.
And that's all I've got. Oh, actually, Mrs. Grassi, did I miss anything that you want to bring up for village grants?
Nope, you guys have anything?
Good. Thank you.
All right, so that brings us to Policy Committee and Booster Organization Liaison, Mrs. Harden.
We haven't had policy meetings since our last one on November 4th. Booster organizations, I guess the biggest thing right now, I mean, obviously all of our elementary schools are, I'm sure, getting ready for their holiday parties and things like that as we close out. The Riverside High School PTA, which is new this year, since we're doing a lot of good stuff. Mr. Mayor, Dr. Bassett, do you guys have anything you want to add about the things they've been doing lately?
They're growing, and we had our best PTA meeting on Monday of last week. Mrs. Gerbach kind of ran it, I zoomed in from South Carolina, but it was probably our most positive and upbeat. They just had their first fundraiser at Brush Boutique, whatever. They have planned for a basketball version of a fundraiser, and then we're going to be building on. They kind of helped us partner with our what we call the holiday culture of family team holiday wish list thing. So it was actually Bassett's idea, but they kind of helped us run with it, and we pushed out like a wish list of like snacks and stuff like that. And we even had teachers like showing me like, look how much stuff was brought to me. I had a parent drop off a envelope of $25 gift cards that we just gave to the teachers at our faculty gathering today for a trivia that we did, you know. So the teachers were like blown away with, and that's elementary, but it should still happen in high school too. So they helped us partner with that, and they were really proud of pushing that for us. And so that was kind of like one of their biggest things so far, and there's more to come.
Good. It's exciting that we have that at the campus now.
For sure.
That's it.
All right, so that brings us to the superintendent's report.
In our last meeting, I told the board that I would give an update on strategic plan. We actually have a meeting set up for January 5th. So I'll have some information for the board for the January meeting. Our numbers are pretty steady. Working at the 4,200, they go to 101 students. So numbers aren't changing at all. I think it's still pretty consistent. I have spoken to Mr. Boers. He is going to give the board and the community an update on all the accomplishments that we have this past fall in terms of sports. Be pleasantly surprised on the number of accomplishments, both at the student athlete level and also the coaches level. It's probably one of the most successful seasons that we've had in a long, long time. We also had the Riverside Hall of Fame, the Alumni Association Hall of Fame, November 5th. And I just wanted to mention the people that were inducted. I had the pleasure, along with Mr. Hack, of attending the ceremony. It was very nice. We had Linda Marcel Lucas, class of 1962. Karen White Honkala, class of 1979. Diane Haynes Miley, class of 1980. Gerald Chip Sorber, class of 1984. Del Bethel, class of 1988. Al Sarge Radix, class of 1989. And Jesse Burke, class of 2001. What I also wanted to mention to the board is in our attempt as a staff trying to raise money for charitable organizations over the past couple weeks. We have what we call Gene Days, where teachers wear jeans on a Wednesday. In order for them to do so, they donate money to these charitable organizations per week. A couple weeks back, we had Salvation Army, Toys for Tots. Another week, we had Toys for Tots. We also had Forbes House, which is a shelter in our area. And yesterday, we had Sub-Zero Mission, which ironically was co-founded by two of the people that were inducted into the Hall of Fame, one being Al Raditz and the other one being Del Bethel. For anyone that is looking for any type of charity, it is a very, very good organization. They actually go out in the community and they provide clothing, boots, jackets, and anything to keep people warm during the winter season so they don't freeze. We were able to raise over, it's actually close to $700. We're collecting the money now from the schools, and Gary and I have been taking them to those organizations. We had the Halls of Holly. It's the first time from a 3-year hiatus. Returned on December 3rd. It was a great event. We had a lot of community members come in with their children. There were story rooms. The whole media center was a putt-putt course. We still had it up because kids were playing it, on the course in Mrs. McIntyre's class. A day later. It's not only the students from Riverside, but the students Initiative for Developing Excellence Side Club, but we also had kids from Maynooth also participate in the operations of this great event. I hear the lines were pretty long too, right?
It was unreal.
We also had a holiday market on December 10th. There's more than 50 vendors selling items in time for the holidays. My main point here is there's just a lot of activities going on throughout the district. Some are, holiday themed, and some are just, we're trying to raise money for organizations and trying to do well with the community at large, trying to build those relationships with the district. Also, in our quest to improve culture and climate at the campus, our teachers and administrators have been engaging and interacting with students through several events and activities and other initiatives. We have received positive feedback as a result of the survey that we sent to the parents, and Mr. Mayor will highlight our efforts. Also, Dr. Bassich will be giving a short presentation regarding the College and Career Readiness program. I have to say, for the amount of time that Mr. Mayor has been here, I'm very happy to see how some things have changed at the high school level. One is in terms of the climate at Riverside. It's no secret that in last spring we had some issues going on where we were able to get control of them, but that's only one component of the issues that we have. We now need to move into another phase of trying to build relationships and trying to help improve the climate culture at the high school, which I think we're on the right road.
Yeah, and it's funny, you guys are talking about the superintendency and what you guys want to see out of that, and I think you're going to kind of see a little bit of this in this presentation. But culture and climate was really, really important to me everywhere I've been, and I think that was like one of probably the main things that I was hired for, was the connection piece with the community and then culture and climate in the building. He's the ex-little guy. I joke, he's the principal, I'm like kind of the coach in the building. He doesn't want to take that reign yet or anything, but we did a survey. I've done this in every building that I've been a principal at, and you have to be able to look in the mirror and take the feedback from it. And these are the things that we asked. We surveyed 8th through 12th grade parents about really 6 things: safety, culture, communication, high expectations, and rigor, which we're going to focus on that one, relationships, and then the attendance. And we did a really big attendance split because we audited ourselves. We'll talk about that too. We surveyed 212 responses, which was good. We just pushed out the kid version of this same thing. We made it kid friendly, and after one day we had 113 responses. So we're getting feedback from them because that's their stakeholders, they're the customer as well. And we analyzed the results. We took those results, the admin team talked about them, we brought them to our department leads, and then we created something which we'll close that to here in a second. But we plan to send out 2 more surveys, essentially day 100 or day 120, right in the middle of January, February, to see if we've done what they've kind of asked us to do from the survey, and then at the end of the year, so we'll do 3 surveys. What does it say behind this? Oh yeah, the survey, sorry, student survey. So the first question was safety first, is obviously has to be the most important thing in every district. And we got unbelievable results. I mean, all 6 were very, very, very good. But, compared to what I was hearing and seeing and so forth about safety, the extra SRO, the safety walks that we're doing, the vestibule, all these things that we're doing extra, sharpen the bathrooms for vaping and all this kind of stuff. These staff members coming in the morning, volunteering their time. How many people? We got 20 people that come in early and sharp the building and make sure that is the most unsecured time in our eyes, from 6:45 to essentially when we start. And that's no more. That's another thing we'll probably talk about mornings with Molinas. It's kind of funny. But yeah, unbelievable results. A, B, you're over 75%. And with the C, you're over 95%, appreciation or, approval rating for safety. And I would predict that you probably wouldn't have thought that would be that result after day 80 compared to last year. Feedback matters, and this will be, you guys will have this, so I don't have to read all these things, but we took all the comments, these aren't all in my head, I can only fit what I could fit, but I love that you hired ex-police officers, the principals having presence, and that's not me, it's everybody. My daughter feels safe, Deputy Rowland and his team have done a great job. Feels much calmer, I have heard, less fighting. Son says he feels safer. My son gives a B+ because There's nowhere near the amount of fights. Better communication, more officer presence, more accountability expected from the students. Happy to see more precautions are being taken, ongoing safety. You know, I'm not just gonna give you the plus, the delta, there was a couple things. They want a buzzer that was mentioned a couple times, they wanted, they're talking about outdated buildings. You got 1,800 kids moving through this building. And, it bugs me too that you got 1,800 kids moving through this building and it's jam-packed when you go from John R. to Riverside. We try to not cross town, but it has to happen. And we got teachers out there. We haven't had a fight in 2 months. We have not had one fight in 2 months, and that's culture. I'm sorry, but it's because it's presence of teachers and staff, SROs, and culture. It's really culture, more than even the presence. So, but yeah, those are a couple of things that, they mentioned. And I had every response, so if you guys want to take the holistic, but I could only fit so much on one page. Yes.
May I ask a question? So if you could put in a nutshell, what is it that you have changed about the culture at Riverside?
It was a slow start. You ask any of these guys, a month in, I was not doing a good job in my, but something clicked, and I didn't think I know what, and then everybody got on board. Everybody's rowing the boat. Everybody's buying into gold standard. Then we got the community, which we'll talk about. I got my right-hand man backing me up. I got everybody buying into the system. Teachers, parents, you'll see from the results. So that is really what's going down right now, and it's really cool to see. And it's happened probably about the 80, I would say the 8-week mark. So about 10 weeks. It's been night and day from the start of the first 8 weeks to the last 10 weeks. And you'll see that pretty much all what we're presenting is why. It's not one person. I'll probably get a little bit of the credit for it, but as I said at our staff gathering, we had 109 staff members, 30 or 40 spouses at Red Hawk tonight. It's them. They're doing it. I get to sit back and kind of quarterback it and so forth, but they are doing it. They're buying in, and they're rowing the boat. They're doing everything like we wanted, and it's really cool to see, as the head guy.
Mr. Hack, to add to that as well, going through the spring that we had last year, we really looked in the mirror, and having a new principal coming in, trying to help him understand where our weaknesses were. We really kind of internally audited ourselves and said, okay, red, yellow, green, where are we? What are we doing green? What are we doing in the middle? What are we doing, that's not so great? And that's really where we started, and that was revolving around the safety and security, communication, all those other things. So I think we really targeted the things that we really needed to target at the beginning, and that's what really helped a lot right at the beginning.
Yeah. I mean, we busted more kids vaping in that first quarter than all last year combined, and we have very little second quarter. It's still happening, but and that kind of set the tone there too. We had a couple arrests early on, even at homecoming. We haven't had a fight in a long time because it's just they don't want to fight each other. They're all Beavers, and we're getting them to believe the culture of family team. So
it's community. You're forming a community.
True. Yep. And these three are, they have a lot to do with it. Obviously, the vestibule's right there, which is a great addition. The community loves seeing that and hearing that. We added 6 AEDs to our building, 4 in our buildings, 2 in the field house, and I think 14 total in the district. Just more safety features. That wasn't me, that was the district purchasing those. But so we communicated that to the public. Safety first. Oh, I went backwards. I'm sorry. Oops. Sorry. Wrong way. All right. So the next one is culture, family, team. Once again, pretty good results. 75%. AD, they're almost 20%. So you're right there at that 93, 95. And we asked them, do you think we're going above and beyond to create this culture of family and team? And that was the results there. Very proud about that. And, I'm not going to read all this to you, but, it says, I love that all students' accomplishments are being recognized, not just the football team. I really enjoy the students being recognized, a multitude of achievements. I really enjoy reading all about the happenings, in the weekly emails, etc. So a lot of positives. I don't even know if we had a negative one on that part of it. So, and an examples in front of you guys, this is kind of like, this is building that culture. If you look, and I think the picture is shown, right there, we had 97 people dressed all the same, The union president told me at the beginning of the year we had 125 of these postcards right here go out on round 1. He said that wouldn't have happened last year. We wouldn't have had any a couple postcards, and so forth. Round 1 was 125, round 2 was 225. That's round 3, and they still have a day. That's over 500 postcards are going out by our staff. It's a little bit of a competition and stuff, but But little things add up, like our, our staff of the month, our, black and gold t-shirt winners, our sponsors from the community Crockett team, all that kind of stuff adds up to create this culture that you're talking about. Melina's and Gerbach created all these ornaments, and there's a bus ornament that's like a little bus, that lights up. Every support staff member got something. Secretaries, to cafeteria workers, to custodian, to kitchen. Everybody got something. They came to an event. I have a text from Dan and I saying it was just really, we've always been invited, Mr. Mayor, but it was just, we really felt part of the team. So that was pretty cool to get that text, after, and that was tonight. And this is what I'm talking about. We have black and gold. Every department gets to choose a winner. We rotate them. We have athletes of the month. We have band members of the month. We have student council of the month. Trying to include everybody, not just the kids that always get in the paper. I'm glad he chose this picture for Mr. Bayless. Mr. Bayless held down the fort huge for us this year. We didn't have a guidance counselor in 9th grade. He did double duty. And I was talking about it tonight. This guy right here is a workhorse. You can't replace him. He's already saying, like, we better figure something out in the next 6-7 years. He was so proud to get that simple shirt. Like, everybody's pumped about getting a shirt, but he was so proud. It was so cool to see that. So, oops. All right, communication is key. They already were doing pretty good communication. I brag about Nick in the interview process. I was very impressed with our social media, your guys' social media presence. But we try to amp that up. Asich was doing a great job on Twitter. I'm a Facebook guy. And then we got the newsletters were already going out by Orlando and Smith, but now we've done the principal update once a week, and it just encompasses just a summary of everything going down. But they're loving that, and I'm not gonna read to it. You guys will have this presentation, but it's just, I love this about this. They just really think we're amping it up. I think there was a negative. What does it say? Something?
Sometimes a bit much.
Yeah. I'd rather over communicate than under. So, but yeah, that was mentioned a couple times because we are blasting them a lot on stuff. But I'd rather them, that's what it says. Communication is key. Tell your story, leave no doubt. So I'd rather them be informed. So, as I said, these are, it's simple. I've done it in every building, whatever. We didn't even have them in Madison, so we called them streak out cards. We created them. They weren't as nice and flashy with the culture playbook and all that, but and what's so cool, I had Samantha Volp's parents at the basketball game last night go, Mr. Mayor, whoever sent that card, she has it up on her mirror, taped to her mirror in her bedroom. I go into the classrooms, they're sending each other them, they're up in their classrooms. He got one, and it just makes you feel good, and it should be that way. A simple thank you or attaboy, and we got 500 plus coming to the mailboxes soon. High expectations rigor, we're going to talk about this. This is where we really need to improve. If you added up the purple and the green, and if you're paying attention to it, that's the only one that actually has percentages for the negative because it obviously qualified for a high enough percentage. So it's 11% of get better, and we're going to talk about that here in a second. Lots of positives, a couple, actually not a couple, there's a bunch of needs improvement. So we met with our staff yesterday, and I'm going to let Vasich talk about this, but he already had this going, but he had to kind of put a pause on it because of COVID. So we revamped it. We sat down as an admin team, we got special ed involved, Mrs. Westbrook, and we sat down with our department leads, they tweaked it, we said that, let them talk about it in TBT last Wednesday, and then we just talked about it this Wednesday and presented it to them. We had them do an activity. And I'm going to stop talking.
Sure. So this is a separate presentation in itself. I think I presented this for about 20 minutes the other day, so I'll keep it very brief. This is a framework that we've developed. It was actually pre-COVID that this was on the books, and we've revamped it. We've tweaked it based on what we need, and really thinking about the high school and what 90 minutes looks like. 90 minutes is a lot of time to sit in a class, right? So we wanted to have a frame for our teachers to have in which they could run their lesson plans through and say, okay, am I hitting each of these areas in my classroom instruction? Having a strong beginning? Is there an element of me teaching, modeling, leading? Is there an element of the students being actively engaged? And then finally, am I finishing out the lesson? And there's certain foundational elements that we wanted to see that align really nicely with theory and just the general instructional practice, and then some examples. So we're starting this semester initiative where essentially we're having the teachers look at their own practice. We just had them do some self-reflection in the staff meeting the other day, running their a lesson that they're going to be doing soon through this instructional framework, and then looking at those foundational pieces to see where they're strong, where they need some improvement, and then where we can provide some professional development in those areas to try to help them in the classroom and support what they're doing in the classroom. So we're really excited to see this through. Each month, we're going to focus on a specific area. So for example, in January, we're going to focus on the beginning of the class. What's the beginning of class look like? Routines, procedures, all those things. We're going to provide supports through our instructional coaches and also administratively resources, and then work through that, and then again do a post-test at the end to see how we've improved in our specific areas, and then we're going to adjust what's needed. So we've really gotten a lot of support and stakeholder input on this. We've had our department heads look at this, we've had our special education department look at this, we've had our administrative team look at this, and we're very excited to roll this out and get this going, and we just started just recently in our staff meeting.
And I'll add too, it was pretty cool to see this. You know, we always let the union speak after our faculty meetings, like give the last word, so to speak, and Mr. Rosinga was all on board, said, let's look in the mirror here. You know, nobody's perfect, we're gonna try to get better. The feedback's the feedback. You know, they're not saying we suck or anything like that. Let's get our hands dirty and do something different a little bit more. And we all can do something different and better. So that was pretty cool for our union to not go, oh my gosh, they want us to do more or do something different. They're actually on board with doing it, so. So that was the feedback, and we went right to work once the stakeholders told us we needed to do something different. Relationships matter. That's how you kind of get the culture and climate going. It all starts with relationships. You usually have a trusted adult, and it added up to, like, once again, 70% AB, another 20, so you're right in that 90%. So they thought it was pretty good that there's somebody they can confide, guidance counselor, coach, administrator, and so forth. Feedback's on the next slide. You know, I gave my name because you all know me. I don't know who the person was, but it's on the, and my family, and we are blessed to be surrounded by a caring school community. It makes a huge difference, which is why we are all in. Laura Poggi is amazing. Dr. Bassage, can we clone him? Miss Poggi and Miss Coach Merritt are awesome. The lacrosse coach is, you know, a kid connected at the end. Sharma, who's our study hall monitor, she's awesome. You know, Miss Knoll, I think, go down there, she's one of our special ed teachers, she's an incredible person. So it was cool, and I sent that to the staff, you know, like where the attaboys were. So I think what was the negative, there was a...
This is very important for some of our kids, relationships with guidance counselors and teachers.
So, yeah, so they weren't saying it was negative, they were just, you know, saying that this is very important, so. And then here's a prime example. That's, like I said, Mornings with Melina's on the right. She has changed the whole dynamic. They're playing games, they're dancing, they're playing, you know, who's going to fight when they're playing chess in the morning, you know, or checkers, whatever that is, at 6:50 in the morning. I mean, they're coming to school on time because they want to go, they don't want to miss Mornings with Melina's, you know. And there's not just Melina's. I got Eccles in there, we got Eccles in there, we got all these adults, you know, circling the wagons with them. To the left is, you know, it wasn't just Melina's, it was for Gerbach, we had kids doing this. You know, they're making this for all these support staff, so it was really cool. Number 6, and this is the last one on mine. Trying to improve attendance. This was very, very important to us. If you miss school, you miss out. I've always said that, and it's, you know, exploited here. We saw real quick when we were doing our attendances that we were having, what was it, 25% chronic absenteeism last year. So 25% of the kids were over 10% or more in our district. So 450 kids missing 18 days or more in our district, right? So we cracked it. I mean, we went after it, we corrected it, we upset a couple parents saying, no, there's letters here, you need to come in and meet, and had our attendance meetings, the AIP meetings, and then we went after some of the athletes. It wasn't just football, but they were skipping, they were going home, getting a nap before game day, before time, and we put that to a screeching halt. We met with the football team, we met with a couple of our stud soccer players and all that. So, yeah, so you can see the feedback, but they appreciated it, you know, about time, you know, all this kind of stuff that, you know, so there's the feedback on that too. So they appreciated it and so forth, so, I think that's it. Oh, and then we had a huge assembly, and I think this is really the turning point for the whole building. We had, you know, 1,500 kids in that building. We're slinging gold standard plaques and, you know, all this stuff. And we, in the middle of something so positive, we said, the attendance has got to change in this building. The attendance has got to, everything's changing, the fighting, this and this, and the attendance in front of everybody, the attendance has got to change in this building for athletes first, but then everybody else is watching the athletes. So we used a positive, and we had, you know, obviously a platform to do it, and then we addressed it, so. And that comes back to, we've already kind of talked about, but that's, you know, this is kind of like, this is what's next. Is we're coming after the instructional piece to get these scores that this community wants, you know, to do it better in the classroom day in, day out. So, and that kind of leads us into this. His piece, they did kind of the same survey a couple of years ago, and that's what the community wanted, college and career readiness, and that's what he's about.
Okay, I will try to be a little bit brief. I know it's getting a little bit late, so us high school people, we're getting close to our bedtime. Just to get right. All right, so have a few things in the college and career readiness arena. I'm so excited that we're surveying not only our parents, but also our students. And several years ago, we also surveyed parents about the curriculum, just different things that are going on the campus. And one of the things that came back via that survey was looking at improving in the areas of college and career readiness. And so what we've really done, and it's a lot of people that are doing the lifting. Dr. Malacker's done a lot of the work. We have Tippy Foley, who's helping us through the ESC. I've been engaged in some of the work as well, and a lot of teachers, to really get a lot of these things off the ground. So I'm going to really spotlight a few of these things on here today. I have some visuals for you to look at as we go forward, but very exciting to look at where we're going in the areas of college and career readiness. So I'm going the wrong way. Okay, so one of the things that we have started to do here at the campus is to look at getting students this idea of career exploration early. So many of you are probably aware at the 6th grade level we have the career explorations class, which is a trimester class that every student takes, where they're having people come in to talk to the students about different career fields. Students are going on field trips to colleges, different things like that. And what the research shows is that the earlier you can get students exposed to career activities and exploration, the better. Now, can they make a decision in 6th grade on what they want to be when they grow up? Maybe, maybe not. But it's good to get those things in front of them so they can start to think about what they want to be as they grow up. So what we did this year is add a course called Riverside Ready. And this is a course that starts in the 8th grade. Every student takes this. And this kind of takes where the 6th grade class left off and continues with the career speakers that are coming in. So you can see here kind of Gordon Thompson from Township Fire came in. This was just, I think, a few weeks or last week to speak with the students. Within that class, we also have some career readiness skills and soft skills built in. They're working on their presentation skills, are working on interviewing, things like that, where they're getting these ideas sort of started in their minds in terms of what it looks like to be ready to be out in the field, whatever that field is for them. So we're beginning in the 8th grade there. As we go through, even through the 9th and 10th grade, students also have opportunities where they can get career-focused information. We're doing Naviance assessments, which is a career profiling assessment software where students are taking assessments and it's lining up with specific careers to see what they may be interested in. And we're really excited to be able to use some of those things. Students are going to Auburn Career Center to explore Auburn Career Center, college visits to Lake Erie College. There's lots of great things. But I wanted to focus on here today at Spotlight, because there's a lot to talk about. I was looking at what we're doing towards the 10th, 11th, and 12th grade years as students are starting to make those decisions on what they're going to be when they get outside of school here. So one of the things that we started doing this year in our 11th grade English classes is embedding what's called the Ohio Means Jobs Readiness Seal. And for those of you guys that are unaware, I think many people in this room have heard the graduation requirements and all the things that we are doing at the state level. But one of the things that we have to do now beyond our credits and the experiences are getting these what are called seals, graduation seals. And so what we decided to do was embed one of those seals directly into our English class in 11th grade so each student is exposed to this material. So this Ohio Means Jobs is a readiness seal program where students are going through a set curriculum. They also have to pair up with a mentor and work on specific skills, and we're embedding that directly in the 11th grade classes so they have that as they're going forward. So that's very exciting to see that embedded. Some of the other things that we're doing within coursework is we are embedding also some industry-recognized credentials. So our welding lab, which many of you are familiar with, is a great place where this is happening. I have a picture here on the next slide of our students that are getting credentialed out of the welding lab. Our business advisor is actually going to have our meeting in the welding lab to start on January 10th, a student-led presentation by the students that are in there every single day. So we're super excited to interact with them there. Now in the welding lab, these are some of our students that have already become credentialed this semester from left to right there. In fact, the student on the left, Austin, I believe he has half a dozen industry-recognized credentials that are coming out, or certificates, I should say, that are coming out of that class to work towards that industry-recognized credential. You can see his work here, right in front of Mr. Mayor and I. This Riverside Beaver that's welded here, it's a pen holder. He actually made that for Mr. Mayor, just delivered that. He made me one too without us asking, just delivered those to us. So using his skills, obviously, to give back to people that helped him out too. Mr. Blank is our teacher on the right. He is a one in a million. I mean, he's fantastic with these students. He loves having anyone in that welding lab that's interested in welding. He's taking students during study halls, hey, come on in, I'll teach you welding. I mean, we have sophomores that are in there that are learning how to do it. But these students here are getting credentialed here right before even the halfway of the year. So we're super excited about these students getting those certifications as they go through. Another place that we are up in our game in terms of the industry recognized credentials and just getting students great experiences is in the Beaver Nation School Store. I think most of you are aware of this. It's actually just right above here. And it is a full store where we have 2 working screen presses where students are creating t-shirts, joggers, sweatpants, hoodies, all those kind of things for anyone that would like them. There's a website online that's active. You can order anytime. We also have these students opening the shop for about 2 hours every single day during the school year. They're going to events. They're at theater productions. They've gone to our nights where we have the parent-teacher conferences and curriculum night and all those things. And they are really starting to turn some good profits and do really well for themselves. They're self-sustaining. We kind of got them off the ground to start, and now they're keeping their income in-house and they're buying their products that they need. So they're running a business.
And, I designed these through my Madison guy, my South Carolina guys, all these designs, and they created them first, but now we just do them in-house. So I don't have to go to Madison to pick them up. And I sent him a text, I need 2 more for these 2 students that were dancing last night or whatever it was, and boom, 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 boom. You guys all have one, I believe. Hopefully we pick the right sizes. But yeah, it's just neat. It's just neat.
Yeah, and so this is something that's really taken off, and these students are also able to get those industry-recognized credentials within this class. So again, we're not trying to compete with Auburn Career Center, we're not Auburn Career Center, but what we can do is we can offer within our coursework that we have here some credentialing that will get these kids out there competitively, and we're very excited about that. And they're also learning about business. They're also learning how to balance sheets, and they're learning about how to advertise and the marketing and all those other elements of business that are there. They're out in the community interacting. They're delivering, they're packaging. I mean, there's all kinds of pieces of this store that we're very excited about. Mr. Ross is doing a fantastic job with that, and he's done a lot of work to make this happen. All right, one of the other areas when you look at college and career readiness is look at how we're helping our college students that are interested in going away to school. I think many of you in here have heard my presentation before about this. We send about 2/3 of our students every year away to school. And so we want to make sure that we help those students and they're ready to go as they go forward. So we started a few new things this year. On the left-hand side, you'll see here on October 17th, it was called a College App Day. So we had students, they were able to come down and get help from not only an English teacher to help them with their college essays, but also with a guidance counselor to help them through the process of applying, transcripts, all those things, whatever they needed help with. So we were trying to in-house help these students in an event during the school day to really get them what they needed. On the other side of this, just recently, December 13th, we had a really great session here for a few hours during the school day where we had 14 graduates come back to speak to our students. These are Riverside grads that are in college, come back to speak to our students about what life's like in college. What do you need to know? How did you pick a college? What do we do? So we want to make sure that our students are being serviced here, and what a better way than to hear from their own, students that they went to school with, the graduates here from Riverside.
And part of this, and just add that, part of the strategic plan is obviously connecting the community with, with the businesses like you guys are saying with all these sponsors and so forth, but then also the alumni. So we're getting these alumni to come back and participate, and our kids can learn from what they've done right and what they've learned that you don't do in college, so.
Exactly. And this is a picture of the event here. You can see on the back by the smart board there, that's our panel of our students who came back. We had OU and Cincinnati, Ohio State. We had all the different EG, all those that came back to speak to our students. And it was great. I attended a part of this on this day, and it was great to hear their feedback. It was good feedback that the students were, good questions that they were asking. Some of the other things we've been able to do too is really leverage some of our alumni here to come back and to share with our students, but more embedded in the classroom. So sort of a speaker series, so to say. So on the left we have Bilal Saleh, who's a senior at Ohio State University, and he is actually a chemical engineering major and working through his internship and is going to be in the field. But he came to speak to our honors chem class about what's it like to be a chemical engineer, what's it like to pursue chemical engineering, I should say, and to get into that field. But he was able to kind of provide real talk, like, okay, this is what you need to do. These are what the courses are like. Yeah, it's hard, and he gave that kind of pep talk to our students. On the right-hand side, you have Mr. Logan Bell. Many of you probably know that name. Logan is currently at Stanford University. He's in a co-term program where he's not only an undergraduate student, but he's currently working on his master's work while at Stanford as well. It's a lot of coursework. but he's majoring in math. And he spoke to our students, he met with teachers just about what his experience is like at Stanford University. And I ran into him at a football game and I said, hey, would you be willing to come back and talk to the kids? He emailed me a couple days later, yes, I'd love to come in. So he came in and he got to go up to the store and we got him a shirt from the Spirit store too, which was cool. One of the other things that you're probably familiar with here is the senior project, which last year we just passed the 1,000 student completion mark. So we've had 1,000 students go through senior project, which is fantastic. This is the senior project fair, which some of you I know in the room have attended. And we also have a junior project, which is a 3-day job shadow junior year for students to participate in. Last year was the first year to do that. Again, just like with senior project, we started small, but we're going to continue to grow as we go forward. So we're really hoping that we're going to get more and more students to do both of these. We actually are in talks about getting that junior project as a part of that Ohio Means Jobs Readiness seal. So students will partake in that and they can actually get some of the requirements for the seal within the junior project, getting our students off campus. And there's a lot of other little things that we've done to really help push forward in the areas of college and career readiness at the campus. Small things like we used to have 3 days each day, their junior year and senior year for college visits. Well, we expanded that to job shadow too, because we wanted to make sure that students could go job shadow. Maybe if they weren't interested in going to college, they weren't going to use those days. So why don't we have you go in job shadow also? So when you add up the numbers here, they can do a lot of outside of Riverside work. I mean, if they do senior project, that's 50 hours over 2 weeks. If they do junior project, that's 3 days. If they do 3 days of job shadow junior year and senior year, I mean, that's almost a whole month of school over 2 years that they're away from here learning what it's like out in their potential field. And we're very excited about that and those opportunities. All right, and then lastly, just to kind of wrap things up, so the Business Advisory Council, we have a picture on the right actually at the school store there where we had our council printing shirts. One of the things, we do meet 4 times a year, but we also meet a lot out of committee. We meet in small groups. Just today, we were meeting with Mr. Lewis, Doug Lewis, who's the city manager of Painesville. He's all the way on the right there. Dr. Malacher and I was meeting with them and a lot of program directors in the city to look at potential work-based opportunities for our students. So we actually work quite a bit out of the large group and in smaller groups. We have Mr. Sturdivant came with a student to do some mentoring here at school to visit the school store. So we're interacting with our business advisory members in different ways, not just in meetings, but also in kind of more informal ways or outside of committee ways. And we're very excited about that. We're growing. We've added 4 new members this year, so we're continuing to grow. I want to sustainably grow. I don't want so many members that it's too many people on a committee, but I also want to make sure it's reflective of our community. And that's one thing Mrs. Kroniski and I talked about is our business advisory reflective of our community that we live in. So that's something we're working on too. Okay, so for the sake of time, those are a lot of the things that we're doing there in the area of college and career readiness. There's a lot more too, but I wanted to update everyone here so you're aware of what we're doing. We take it, it's a very important thing for us, and I want to make sure our students are ready. As a Riverside grad, it's very important to me that our students that leave here are ready to go when they leave these halls. Thank you.
Thank you.
Brings us to Treasurer's Report and Committee Update. So Finance and Audit, Personnel Committee, and Strategic Plan Liaison, Mrs. Grassi.
I have to follow that.
That's what I was going to say.
I know.
Thank you. No problem. Okay, so we had a finance meeting on December 8th at 8:15. We started with personnel, talked about some of the things that we're going to be looking to add. We were requested to move forward with the hire of a behavioral coach. And we agreed that we could go ahead and post that and then approve that when we decide to hire. Buckeye is looking for an intervention specialist. I don't know if we've hired that person or not yet, but just for the semester because of the numbers that are there. And so we talked about our hiring practices. We talked about a number of things, and then we went on to talk about the finance agenda. We talked about all the things that were on our finance agenda. There's nothing there that we had any conversation that we just did not want to approve the things that are on the finance agenda. We did talk about the cell tower, and those things are those conversations are moving forward with the different cell tower companies. The State of the Schools address, we talked about. Leroy will be coming up in February for Leroy and Painesville City. We haven't had a response from them yet, but everybody else has been, had a presentation from Gary. And then we talked about some of the ESC contracts and services that we have. We have the opportunity to switch ESCs every 2 years. Every 2 years. We don't have any intention of doing that, but it's just something that we have to consider every other year. And that the treasurer's office will be getting new furniture.
Week of Martin Luther King week, they're gonna start tearing out and renovating the room over break in the first couple
And
weeks.
if anybody is not aware, that office is in much need of some improvements, brightening, like modernizing, whatever. It'll be really nice when it's done. I'd like to see it. So again, I just want to be brief. We had that. And then strategic plan. We'll get an update next
We
meeting.
have a meeting January 5th.
Those things are moving forward, so that's all I have.
Thank you.
Did I miss anything?
I think you covered it.
Okay. Try to be quick.
All right, so update from the treasurer?
All right, I know back in October, I reviewed all the different funds of the district up into the 400s and 500s for our state and federal grant funds. I was supposed to go over those tonight, but I knew we had a long agenda, so I'm going to defer that to the meeting. I did have some discussions after our buildings and grounds meeting with NV5. I did send a survey out to the board and also to anybody in administration and teachers union who had met with NV5 previously to complete the survey. So if you haven't seen that email, complete that survey, please do so in the next couple of days. We're going to have a meeting, the administration is going to meet with NV5 on January 11th to review where they're at in the progress and the process. They have about 5 options right now for facility plan ideas. They want to kind of have that discussion with us, just to kind of make sure they're on the right.
Is that, did you send a meeting request for January 11th?
It's just with the administration for now. And then we're just going to have run through them real quick, make sure they're not missing anything, and then orally from NV5 plans to come to our January board meeting to give an update. And so once we have that scheduled, we'll know the date. So if I gave the anticipated date, we continue to 30 days. So just really an update on where we're at, and she can make any final tweaks or any additional information comes out between now and then, they can revise from there. Just to give a update that we applied, we were awarded $200,000 in safety grant funds a couple months ago. We applied an additional $200,000. We received word that we were not awarded those additional $200,000 from that grant. We're using those funds, the original $200,000 plus our permanent improvement fund we're using for the secure vestibule project we're going to hopefully do this coming summer. TDA came out, the architect, on December 6th. They took measurements here at the campus at Lamuth, Buckeye, and Melridge, and they're going to start the design and hopefully be bid out in early spring for a summer project, unless there's too many supply chain issues. Our goal is to try to get done over the summer. During the lame duck session in the last 24 hours, they approved House Bill 45, which is awaiting the governor's signature. And in that House bill, they have an appropriation for an additional $112 million for school safety grants. So my hope is that that $200,000 that we're not awarded, that will come back and award those funds, assuming the governor signs House Bill 45. So I'll let you know if that hopeful, but $112 million is more than doubling the original $100 million that they did. So hopefully we'll receive those grant funds that will give us $400,000 for the project. And also wanted to just kind of point out one other thing that was in lame duck session was House Bill 458 that would eliminate the August election. And I went back and looked at some records I had, assuming it's accurate. In the last 36 years, we were only on the August ballot 4 times, and was only successful in one of those 4 times. So that was interesting. Typically, August elections are not successful, and being that the timing of things, I don't know if that's really a loss per se. And then, and lastly, I know just to give a safety update, the sheriff's office is meeting has met with a potential additional candidate from school safety officer. They likely won't start till the next school year due to retirement and a gap. So it's in the works, and our hope is to have both Parkside and Riverview filled for next school year at the latest. And just a reminder, when we get to the buildings and grounds operations for a portion of the agenda, we need to set our organization dates. So point that out before we get to that point. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Next is public participation. Anyone wishing to address the Board of Education will be recognized by the Board President. Speakers are requested to identify themselves and their topic. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. You're good? All right. Anyone wishing to address the board? Yes, sir.
John Music, Painesville Township. As everybody knows, I went to school here for 12 years through the Painesville Township School District. And I have a lot to say. Riverside is not Riverside anymore, in my opinion. And the thing about it is, I'm glad to hear the gentleman talk about the fights. Somebody is trying to do something, and I thank him for that. We don't have deputies here from protect from outside. It's what's going on within. And I think schools are part of the problem. Something's going on in our schools that causes this. And I'm glad to hear that it's improved, that it's gotten better. And I thank that gentleman for doing what he's doing to correct that problem. One other thing I'd like to mention, this is my 3-minute opinion. I heard during the conversation with the OSBA representative, saying that, oh, we talk, we don't agree on things, but we work them out. Well, Mr. Fischel brought that possible resolution up and nobody would second it. So I thought, you say one thing, but you do something else. Like they say, talk the walk, then you walk the talk. I'm very disappointed that somebody did not second that to talk about it. Because I know for a fact, I live in Painesville Township almost my entire life. I'm probably older than anybody in this room. And the thing about it, I know CRT, SEL, SOGI, and I could go on, is a big thing in our school districts. Not just here, throughout the country. It's like a friend of mine, he used to belong to the gang unit in Los Angeles County, moved here to Ohio, and he was a head of the gang unit and in another county, not this county. And he says, don't you ever believe the drug cartels and the gangs are not here in Ohio. Everybody thinks, oh, it happens in that school, not my school. I don't agree with that. It does happen in all schools. And also, Title IX, as you know, according to what I'm reading, I go on the OSB's website and so forth and so forth. But anyhow, there's going to be a letter sent to the board from the OSBA. The board voted on it was 10-7, and about it isn't law and so forth. So when that letter comes in, I'll do a records request to get a copy of that. I'd like to see what that says and to see what goes on, what you people, you the board, decide to do with that. And then lastly, off the SBA website, it says control of public school system by locally elected board members produces an educational system designed to meet the needs of the community's children. Locally elected school board members provide citizens the direct means to influence local education policy, program, and cost. Maintains locally elected school boards which exemplify representative government of the people. Well, I don't have time. I have a lot more to say. Thank you. That's my opinion. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to address the board?
Wow. I was blown away by Principal Mayer and Dr. Basich's presentation. And, you know, Dr. Kalis, I got to commend you on your selection of Principal Mayer to come work here. I mean, what a positive message. I was absolutely blown away that so much could change so quickly in such a positive direction. That's just so enlightening and heartwarming. And I can tell you, both of my sons come home from school every day and they have something good to say just about every day from school. And I absolutely love that. You know, I'm going to pray from here going forward that, and again, not to take anything away from Dr. Kalis and his stewardship of the district during his tenure here, but man, I'm going to pray that you find a guy who can build on the team that you've started building and continue with that. Because, wow, I mean, where could this school be? In as much as, and again, I realize it's not only Dr. Basich and Mr. Mayor, but everybody involved, you know. And the infectiousness of all of that, you got to capitalize on that, okay? And again, I would very much ask that the board and the district reach out to the parents, the local business owners. I mean, you know, I can remember 25, 30 odd years ago, Sheriff Dunlap and his brother Daryl finishing concrete on that French field house, or the field house, not the French, I'm thinking of Ohio State, I'm sorry. Anyway, the field house, okay? I mean, there's a milestone and that, you know, was done that the school didn't really have to pay a lot for, probably very little, okay? And engage the community like that. You know, the baseball situation, I understand, you know, Mr. Orlesek saying it's hundreds of thousands of dollars. But you know what? Use the spark of what we've seen here tonight and what we've seen from the past with regard to the field house. Capitalize on that. There's a path forward where we don't have to go to the taxpayers for that money, and we don't need to dip into budget concerns that we need someplace else. Okay? I am just so that it was worth sitting here for 2.5 hours to listen to those gentlemen talk and bring forth everything they said. And like with the welding department, the kids in welding, those kids can fabricate anything, whatever the school needs. Go to those kids and their teacher. I'm confident if you need something fabricated, welded, you know, with the iron worker they have and all the other equipment, you will be blown away by what they'll provide the school. And build on that. I know my time's up. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Kathy Fischel, Dr. Township. I have to piggyback off that. That was the best part of the meeting, any of these meetings that I've ever been at. Those two are dynamic, and I agree with Mr. Weiss. We got to build on that. That's positive. It makes me want to come back to school. That's it.
Thank you. Yes?
I'm Jessica Nagy. I'm a student here at the campus and at the elementary school. I actually want to talk about diversity. The lovely Dr. Malacca is going to pass you out this research paper. I'm going to reference the bulletin that comes out on student services and the breakdown of how the students identify. So roughly 17.9% of our student population is registered as non-white, so 18%, which I kind of want to draw to that number because as people have talked about the survey that was just presented and talked about and raved about as the numbers of responses, which is you know, credible, but that's only 12%. 12% responded that we're raving about. We have 18% of non-white kids in this district that are not being attended to. How do I know that? Because I got the numbers pulled by the wonderful Mr. Kalis. We only have one teacher in this entire district that is non-white. She is here at the campus. The students don't have access to her until they are a junior. The other three are student aides. That's it. So we have 4 non-white adults employed to attend to these students. The research paper that you're seeing is very heavy load, but it also encompasses a lot of other research in it to showcase outcomes and how impeccable it is to have these students have same-sex teachers involved in their lives. That we are doing an injustice to these students, that we are not diversified for them, that in fact by the time that they're here in the high school campus, they're lost, which is why we have such a prejudice against them. They're in a sea of white, per se. We are whitewashing them. And I'm calling on you guys as you're looking for new employees to do your search more widely. I know in the past you belong to CAMRA, Cleveland Area Minority Recruiters Association, and I'm calling on you to look for that to encompass your search wider than what you are currently doing to help these students. You are talking about, I've heard a lot today about looking at, Mr. Degrassi talked about being, diverse and we have students of all over and this and that. We do, but we're not helping that. We are doing a serious injustice. We have only one teacher that is non-white in this entire district here, and juniors get access to her. My 2 children are biracial. That's not fair. My daughter, who's a freshman here, has told me she doesn't feel she fits in at times. She doesn't feel too white, she doesn't feel black enough. That's not fair. So I'm asking you guys, as administrators, as elected officials, to do better, and especially you, Mr. Official. I'm looking at you, who does not pay attention, who is blatantly racist, to do better. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Hi. So following that, okay. So I'm Chris Salon. I've been from Painesville Township. I've been coming to these meetings for about 6 months or so. And I would echo, this was a much more positive meeting. And it was certainly because of Principal Mayer and Dr. Basich. They're awesome people, and they're focusing on the right stuff, at least from what I can tell. And you guys have heard me talk about the fact that, my kids went to the school, some are still in the school, and their experiences with, being told that they hate their own kind. They're white people, in case you're wondering. So they try to promote diversity or support people, and they get told they hate their own kind. I mean, that is awful, right? I mean, at least I'm hoping you think that's awful. So I very much agree with what was just said in terms of we can do better. We can't go down the path. So I skipped the topic of just we need to try to do better. It is what my topic is. But the point I'm trying to get to is there are built-in structural issues that we have that if you don't see things from other people's eyes, you aren't going to understand their trials and tribulations. And businesses all over the country are realizing that. And leaders of those businesses are taking those businesses in more diverse ways. So, and that's both from race, religion, LGBT background, whatever it is. So I'm hoping what Dr. Basich and Principal Mayer are doing, that promoting of family, I think is an incredibly powerful thing. A lot of folks in this room have talked about we shouldn't be teaching kids how to be gay or something like that. It's utterly ridiculous because we're not doing that, right? But we are saying it's okay to be who you are and we will help you, okay? We'll support you. We'll try to teach you about reading, writing, arithmetic while respecting who you are. That's family. That is how parents treat their kids, who respect their kids. So that is the right way of going, and I'm hoping they continue that, and please invite them to this meeting more often. So, thank you.
Yeah. Anyone else?
All right. Brings us to our consent agenda. The first one is finance and audit.
All right, we have a motion to approve the items listed on the finance and audit consent agenda as recommended by the treasurer, items A through G. Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you. I would like to thank the following for their donations to the district, because that's one of the agenda items. We have Myrna and Herbert Perlman, Susan Dolce, Sue and Dan Reppert, Dr. Irrigation, Carissa and Jonathan Sharp. They have all donated to SIDE. We have Ken Huffman, who donated to the Riverside Choir. We have Mentor Rotary Foundation, who donated to Riverside Drama, and we have a substantial donation from Parkside PTO for the books for grades 1 through 3 at Parkside Elementary. So I'd just like to thank all those individuals and organizations for those donations. Is there any other discussion on these agenda items? All right, can we call the roll?
Jennifer Hurd.
Aye.
Lori Kniske.
Aye.
Tom Heck.
Aye.
Scott Fishel.
Aye.
Linda Grassi.
Aye.
Motion carried. That brings us to personnel.
Sure, we have a motion to approve the items listed on the personnel consent agenda as recommended by the superintendent, items A through G.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All right. be official.
Take it back, Jim.
Don't take it back. I'm waiting, I'm giving you a minute, you sure?
Last chance.
All right.
All right.
All right, can we call the roll, Mr. Clark?
Lori Knessky.
Aye.
Tom Heck.
Aye.
Scott Fishel.
Abstain.
Linda Grassi.
Aye.
Jennifer Harden.
Aye.
Motion carried. And next we have a, item I, a resignation, on the agenda to approve the resignation of Jacqueline DeSimone, tutor at Mellor Elementary, effective at the end of the workday on December 19th, 2022. Can I have a second?
A second.
Is there any discussion on that? All right, Mr. Clerk, can we call the roll then?
Tom Heck.
Aye.
Scott Fishel.
Abstain.
Linda Grassi.
Aye.
Jennifer Harden.
Aye.
Lori Knessky.
Aye. Motion carried. Curriculum and programming?
Make a motion to approve the items listed on the curriculum programming consent agenda as recommended by the superintendent. Items A and B.
A second.
Any discussion? Can you please call the roll?
Scott Fishel.
Aye.
Linda Grassi.
Aye.
Jennifer Harden.
Aye.
Lori Knessky.
Aye.
Tom Heck.
Aye.
Motion carried. Buildings and grounds, operations?
Motion to approve the items listed on the buildings and grounds consent agenda, items A to F, as recommended by the superintendent. May I have a second, please?
I'll second.
Thank you very much. Any discussion?
We fill in the date of the organizational meeting on item A.
A, thank you.
It has to be before the 15th.
It has to have to be before the 15th of January.
My schedule is always open. Never used to be.
So looking at this, is there any way that we might do it the week of the 2nd, which is obviously the first full week of January?
Would be good for me.
Can we do Thursday the 5th then?
That would work for me.
Which day?
Thursday the 5th?
Good.
And then, so I know there's a short meeting where we talk about,
We do a tax budget hearing at 6:45 PM, and then the organization meeting at 7. If we have any other business items, we'll have a special meeting to follow up if necessary.
all right, so,
You'll send out meeting agenda notices, right? Like-
Yeah.
all right. So with that, modification to item A, is there any other discussion? Hearing none, can you call the roll, please?
Linda Grassi.
Aye.
Jennifer Harden.
Aye.
Lori Knessky.
Aye.
Tom Heck.
Aye.
Scott Fishel.
Aye.
Motion carried.
I put it on the two. Is it
Or
separate?
just two?
There was an error on the agenda. They shouldn't have that vote.
Okay, I was looking, okay, perfect. Right,
As long as we call it, we get through that.
yep. All right, that brings us to the Board of Education update. Any updates?
I would just like to give a shout out to Laura Pochi, who made all of those shirts for the staff. That was just, that's crazy.
Are we on the update?
Yep.
Okay. So, are you done?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I wanted to say that I actually kind of following in the wake of what Mr. Fisher did. He went and sat in on a few classes. And frankly, my kids graduated in 17 and 18. I had a sense of, kind of a sense of what was going on through my kids, through what was going on in Riverside. But obviously, it's been a number of years since I have had that kind of a little bit of a beat of what's going on. So right around, I guess it was actually on the 10th of November, which is when we celebrated and recognized the veterans on Veterans Day, I had an opportunity to sit in a physics class as well as a social studies class, and I just, wanted to see what's going on. What's going on with the classroom? What's the dynamic between the students? How are we using technology? What's going on? Had a very good experience there. Last Friday, I had an opportunity to go to Buckeye and sat in on a couple of classes there as well. It was, it's been a challenge for those of you who may have students who are in elementary schools. There's a lot of things going around, RSV and other things, and so I was warned before I went that many of the students were out, and in fact the previous day there were 70 kids out, and another 20 actually left during the course of the day. I bring that up for context, right? So there was a lot of chaos going on. Many of the staff were out. In fact, Mrs. Is it Smallman? Mrs. She was out. So I went to Buckeye in an environment where everybody was operating they're operating independently based on their experience and based on the expectations and the understanding that they have on how Buckeye should operate. And so I ended up in a fifth grade classroom. I won't name names, but it was, she ended up in a situation where the other fifth grade class, their teacher was out. So she had 40 students. She had to teach some classes that she didn't normally teach. She had me in the classroom as well, which is, that can tend to raise blood pressure. And she did a terrific job, right? It was a great experience. I got to see, I looked at electronics. I didn't fully understand. Even when I was here at the campus for the couple classes, I kind of look at the computer in the classroom is really a digitized blackboard, right? And an overhead, right? It's an updated version of what I experienced. And I think that's true. To some degree, that's true. But what I had not seen to that point was that in the fifth grade class, they were taking a precursor state test. And in fact, the teacher that was out was well enough to actually engage online. I'm sorry this is so long. This has been a long meeting, but I'm in the middle of it. I'm going to continue. But what I didn't understand was the way that she could still interact with her students, even though it was remote. So I got a better understanding of the dynamic of using computers and other things in the classroom. So that was useful for me. I also got to sit in on another class, a second grade class, and got to see the interactions there. And I will tell you that I didn't really have flashbacks when I was here at the campus, but I did have flashbacks to being a second and fifth grader. I was kind of weird. But it was great. And the whole point of it is Mrs. Smallman was out. She wasn't even there. She was ill. And yet, Buckeye just moved forward like clockwork. They didn't skip a beat, right? And so I think that is really positive and indicative of our ability. When I said we were plucky earlier, what is plucky? It means plucky I'm not sure if this is the technical definition, but it's you're never out, right? You're kind of hard to put down. You're hard to defeat. You always find a way to come to the surface, and I think that experience was indicative of the pluckiness of Riverside. It really was a good experience. I'm not an expert. I don't want to come across as being an expert on Buckeye after spending 5 hours there, but I did get to see something in an environment where it was unusual, right? And yet things were clicked right along. And so it was a good experience. I do hope to come to the campus. Again, I'd like to stop by Lamuth. And again, it's just to understand better. We are an educational institution. I just feel isolated, and I'm glad Mr. Fischel, I've never done it if Mr. Fischel hadn't thought of it. But it does give me a better basis, and hopefully will result in me being able to apply better judgment as I sit here on the board. So anyway, sorry for the long dissertation there, but it was a great experience, and I want to thank everybody for that opportunity. And I want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
Same.
Any other board updates? All right, so I will make a motion to adjourn to executive session at 9:43 PM to discuss appointment and/or employment, compensation, and negotiations. Can I get a second? Thank you. Any call the roll, please.
Lori Kniske.
Aye.
Tom Heck.
Aye.
Scott Fishel.
Aye.
Linda Grassi.
Aye.
Jennifer Hart.
Aye.
Motion carried. We have